Well, we gave you the reality check from our year ago graduates and told you that the job market is actually a little better this year. Now the tools you need to land the job. For that, I turn to Ford Myers, President of Career Potential. Ford, great to have you here.
Thank you, Mary. It's great to see you.
In our last segment, we were talking about the job search, and Bill had mentioned that he had gone to several job fairs. He found them to be a waste of time. First of all, do you think they're a waste of time for everybody? And if not, how can you make them worthwhile for you?
Well, Mary, what I have found is that job fairs can be a waste of time if you don't approach them with the correct attitude. And what I mean by that is that if you go to the job fair with your resume in your hand, stand in line, waiting to speak to the employer, the chances are you will find it to be a waste of time. Some people have called them cattle calls. Some people have called them meat markets. These are some of the negative phrases you hear about job fairs. And I don't want to really badmouth job fairs. They can be very productive, and particularly if a person follows this formula. If they go to the job fair thinking of it not as a cattle call or as standing in line for job offers, but instead to use it as a networking opportunity, I actually instruct people to use the job fair as a networking opportunity. They can mill around and talk to other job seekers. They can speak to company representatives when they're not working behind the booth, when they themselves are milling around or going for their lunch break. It's a great source for information, for inside information about companies and about trends and industries. So if I were going to a job fair, I would not stand in line with my resume. I would actually use it as a great networking opportunity and an information gathering opportunity.
And you say that, you know, for so many new college grads, they look at their resume as the end-all, be-all to getting that job, and you say that's just naive.
It is naive. I think this is true for recent graduates and for adults. People tend to use the resume as the cornerstone of their search. This is how we're raised in this culture. This is basically all we know. And the reality is that while the resume certainly is critically important, it actually should be one of the least used tools in your entire toolkit, or your portfolio, if you will. There are so many other tools that need to be used to really give your search momentum and to give it strength. The resume is critically important. It has to be great, but it definitely should not be the only tool of the entire job search.
So let's talk about some of the areas you can really work on. You want that great resume. So you have that, make sure it's done, make sure it's well done. Okay, but when you're out there and you're actually doing the seeking, what are some of the tools that should be on the top of the list?
Okay, great question. Some of the tools that are great to use are accomplishment stories, for example. These are written stories that you can prepare in advance. They typically follow a formula that asks the following questions. The story should answer questions like, what was the problem, need, or situation? Secondly, what did you do about it? Third, how did you do it? Fourth, what positive, tangible results did you produce? And fifth, what skills did you demonstrate? If you follow that kind of formula in creating accomplishment stories, you'll do great in the interview. These are stories about things you feel proud of, things that you feel that you performed very well, things that you really want to relate to the employer.
And that's great, because if you've thought through them, chances are you're going to tell a better story when it comes time to actually telling that story to someone who's going to be interviewing you.
Yeah.
You say, think about the verbal presentation and whether it is that story, you know, a longer format story. Well, how about the elevator pitch, that 15-second pitch of who you are and what you want?
Sure, I understand. Okay, Mary, this has three names, basically. There's the positioning statement, there's the elevator speech, and there's the 15-second commercial. Whatever you call it, this is something that's critically important, because the first thing you're going to be asked at an interview is, tell me about yourself, or who are you and why should I be interested, or what brings you here today? These are perfect setups for you to give your positioning statement. The positioning statement has to be written in advance, carefully thought out, very well crafted, so that it gives a strong, succinct, powerful impression of your best self professionally.
And I guess it should, let me cut you off there, because it should, well, it should be well crafted and well thought out. It should not read like a rehearsed line. It needs to still sound like your voice.
Well, ironically, the more you practice it, the less robotic you will sound. The more you get ready and prepare, the less prepared you will actually sound. So I actually work with clients in practicing this and making sure they feel very comfortable with it, almost like an actor would go out on a stage and be comfortable with his or her lines.
Now, in our last minute here, how do we make sure that we're not too wide? Actually, we've got 30 seconds, too wide in our search. How do we narrow it down?
Simple. I ask people to create a list of, basically it's a wish list. A wish list about their employer, a wish list about the job, the scope of responsibilities, and also tie that into their long-term goals. In other words, we don't just go looking for jobs, anybody who will hire you. Instead, we focus in like a laser beam on exactly the kind of job you really want, what you're most ready and prepared for, and what will suit your long-term career plans.
All right, Fort Myers, great advice. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure, Mary. Thank you very much.
And I'll be right back.
You're watching Money Matters Today.